I'm George Steppen. Welcome to Spiritual Reality. Today I want to share with you part 2 of our study on the topic of comebacks. Comebacks are one of the building blocks of life. A comeback means you've had a setback, and come to find out it was only a set-up for a comeback. And when you base your life in Philippians 1 and the awareness of the reality of the providential sovereignty of God in your life, that means in providence, He's providing for you, taking care of everything, protecting you, meeting your needs, guiding you, all of it. And sovereignty means He's in control. He's controlling you, He's controlling people that you interact with, He's controlling the circumstances of your life. And when all of that is true, and you find a way to rest in that truth, that is, lay aside all the worry and fretting and the self-condemning and all that, saying, oh, I failed, now I'm a failure. All that kind of thinking is unnecessary, and it's an affront to God. He loves you and has provided for you and is providing, so trust Him. And when you do, you'll have confidence in your present situation. You will have a certainty about your past. I know that God was at work there. I made a mistake or 3, but He took care of it. I don't have to worry. And then you'll be convinced regarding your future. Now, I just want to point us to the story of a lady named Amelia Antonetti today and just go through her experience. She, it turns out, is an amazing woman. She's an entrepreneur. I don't know by now, she's probably started a dozen companies that are all million-dollar thriving enterprises. I think her first one, though, happened out of the story I'm about to share. In 1993, she was just an ordinary suburban mom from San Leandro, California. But she couldn't figure out why her newborn baby boy was sick. And this child had bumpy rashes head to toe. His skin would just peel sometimes when she changed his diaper. He was congested. He had a hacky cough, shallow breath, in great pain most of the time, screaming in the night. She went to doctors, she went to specialists, she went everywhere. And for 2 years tried to find a solution. Doctors did everything they could think of. One even said, oh, you're just overreacting. Boy, don't you love it when a doctor does that? When you know your situation is what it is and they poo-poo it as you just have a personal problem. Well, anyway, by the end of 2 years, she couldn't take it anymore. I mean, their household was just a wreck from this child's problems. So she decided to start journaling with great detail her and her child's life. And she kept track of every time he felt the least bit better and then when he felt worse. And she began to notice that on the days that she didn't clean the house, he seemed better than on the days that she did. So she set aside Tuesday as non-house cleaning day and didn't do a thing to polish up or clean up or mop up or anything. And guess what? The child was way healthier on those days when no chemicals were brought out. So she put 2 and 2 together and began researching the contents of the various chemicals that she used in the house. And sure enough, there were common denominators. And she then researched the chemicals, and they were capable of being irritants to respiratory and to the skin and all else. So she then began developing a line of soap products. She got recipes from the 19th century, and she eliminated these particular chemicals, those that especially recurred in every one of the products, though a different manufacturer perhaps, and did this research, and she began developing a soap that was absolutely non-irritable to her son or anybody, and he just rebounded quickly and was restored to great health. And of course she began talking about this with friends and family and all, and a few people said, we'd like to try some of that soap. She took out ads in the local newspaper and began selling her soap. She tried to get it in supermarkets, but they're hard to get into. And it was no exception for her, so she ended up at Trader Joe's and some of the specialty markets like that. Well, a radio executive one day saw one of her ads in the local paper and invited her to come and have a time on the talk show on radio promoting her soap, which she did, and she had a great speaking voice for radio, and in no time her show had expanded and she was on regularly with an audience of 250,000 people, and the sales began booming. And in a couple years later, she was surprised to look at the previous year and discover they had done $10 million in sales. That's what I mean. This is an unusual lady. I know a lot of ladies that have learned to make soap and make a very wonderful product, but I don't know any that are doing $10 million a year with it. But in any case, in '95, 2 years after she had been at the bottom of the barrel with this problem, her company was making $10 million, the cash flow, and her son was healthy. And she points out that you've got to know when to pick yourself up by your bootstraps and go make something happen. And I won't argue with that. That's very important. A lot of elements in life are like this. You have to make a decision, and you have to focus yourself. You might have to change what you've been doing. They always like to say the same results. People that fail often try to use the same method, hoping for new results, and they're not going to get them. And that statement can or cannot be true. There are times when what you're doing is the absolute right thing to do. And maybe it's not apparently successful by a certain measure at a certain moment, but that doesn't mean it's wrong to pursue it. And especially in the work of God. God has laid down how we are to serve Him and what we are to preach and teach and believe and how we're to walk and all of it. And we must all keep doing that no matter what. But maybe go and say, Lord, do I need to make an adjustment here in my focus, in my vocabulary, in my marketing, something like that. And that's what she did, and has the tremendous financial success as well as the problem solved for her child to reflect it. She did not let a setback dominate her life. She dealt with it conventionally for a little while and then took the bull by the horns. Let me tell you about a few other people that had discouraging moments in their life. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school varsity basketball team as a 10th grader. Coach said, "You have no talent." Michael Jordan, are you kidding me? John Sebastian Bach was not even considered a good musician by some in his day, and got passed over for a position he sought by musicians you've never heard of. He could have been the man. Rocky Marciano became a boxer after he couldn't make it in his first love, baseball. He was cut from the Chicago Cubs. George Foreman won back his heavyweight boxing crown when he was 45. Muhammad Ali almost quit during his first big fight. Wow. Colonel Sanders started Kentucky Fried Chicken when he was 65 because his pension was so small. After 2 full years, he had sold just 5 franchises. But something happened in there, and the rest is history, huh? Lots of KFCs around. When Tony Bennett was 55, the IRS started proceedings to take his home. Frank Sinatra was considered a has-been at 34, fired from radio, concerts a flop, dropped by his agent, lost his voice, divorced. Some say he attempted suicide. But again, out of all that setback came a tremendous comeback. J.K. Rowling was a welfare mom living with her sister while writing Harry Potter. Well, the first edition, first segment. Vice President Dick Cheney flunked out of Yale, and he still made it. Albert Einstein was considered a poor student. He failed to gain admittance to engineering school and lamented his lack of imagination in a letter to a friend. He was down and out and believing what people were telling him. Kurt Warner was cut from several NFL teams along the way. At one point, was stocking shelves in the Hy-Vee supermarket in Cedar Rapids, Iowa for $5.50 an hour. That was in 1994. He kept coming back, though. In '99, he would lead the St. Louis Rams to a Super Bowl victory and earn a 6-year, $47.5 million contract. Now, he could have settled for stocking groceries. Not Kurt. Wiped out by the stock market crash of the Great Depression, Winston Churchill, at 64, put his estate up for sale in 1938. Home Depot was founded by two individuals who were fired from California retailer Handy Dan. And let me think, I didn't see a Handy Dan around today or in a long time. The founder of Federal Express wrote a college paper on the need for a new transportation system. His paper got a C, the story goes, but the idea proved to be worth $40 billion. I love this. Superstar author John Grisham purchased 1,000 copies of his first book. He bought them himself and peddled them out of his car trunk at garden club meetings and libraries and gave away many of them to family and friends. And I don't think anybody knows what John Grisham is worth by now, having sold gazillions of books. Willie Nelson was more than broke at 57. He owed the IRS $13 million. He agreed to work it off over 5 years, but he paid his debt in just 3. And then there was Jim Abbott, who pitched 10 years in the major leagues with no right hand. All of these people overcame a tremendous obstacle, a tremendous setback. And the Apostle Paul just put it very simply in Philippians 4, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And if you will do that, call on Him, rely on Him, surrender to Him, confess that He is your strength, you pick up and you go on from here. You could be in any one of these situations, something very much like them. That's okay. A setback is a setup for a comeback, and you can do it. Now, the disciples really flogged themselves the night they prayed with Jesus in the garden before He went to the cross. And Oswald Chambers says the disciples went to sleep when they should have kept awake, and when they realized what they had done, it produced despair. The sense of the irreparable is apt to make us despair, and we say it is all up now. It's no use trying anymore. If we imagine that this kind of despair is exceptional, we're mistaken. It's very ordinary. It's a common human experience. Whenever we realize that we have not done that which we had a magnificent opportunity of doing, then we are apt to sink into despair, and Jesus comes and says, sleep on now. That opportunity is lost forever. You cannot alter it. But arise and go to the next thing. Let the past sleep, but let it sleep on the bosom of Christ and go out into the irresistible future with Him. There are experiences like this in each of our lives. We are in despair, the despair that comes from actualities, and we cannot lift ourselves out of it. The disciples in this instance had done a downright unforgivable thing. They'd gone to sleep instead of watching with Jesus. But He came with a spiritual initiative against their despair and said, arise and do the next thing. If we're inspired of God, what is the next thing? To trust Him absolutely and to pray on the ground of His redemption. It's a fact that none of us can go back and change the past, but we all can start new today and change the future. Lord Jesus, thank You for the strength and power and hope and possibilities we have in You. Thank You for Your forgiveness and Your just reaching into our lives and injecting us with the power and the clear thinking and creativity that we need. So if we're at a time of setback, may we quickly come into a time of comeback, and we praise You in the name, Lord Jesus. Amen Thanks for your time today. It's been good to share with you. Spiritual Reality is brought to you by Rekindle the Flame Ministries at the Hub in Midland, Texas. God bless you.